Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Happy Thursday, Friday Eve, a big Memorial Day weekend too for us over in the States. A long weekend, I hope, for many of you. But we are really excited about today's webinar, really happy that a lot of you are joining us. I saw the waiting room was quite a good number, and so I can tell a lot of you are excited about the topic, excited to hear from Radhika and Jessica today. Uh, while we wait for some more folks to trickle in, feel free, use the chat. Let us know where you are calling in from. Go ahead, drop your LinkedIn. We'd love for you to connect with some people, meet a new friend today. But my name is David. I am calling in from Jacksonville, Florida. We were just talking about the weather, and it's officially summer here. I think we've been a few days now in the 90s. Today is at least a little cooler. We're in the 80s. But we are, like I said, fully in summer mode. And so feel free to let us know where you're calling in from, what the weather's like in your neighborhood. But before we get started, we have just a couple of just housekeeping items to discuss. Zoom does automatically default to chatting with host and panelists. And so feel free to toggle that switch so you can chat with everyone. We love our webinars to be engaging. We love for the chat to be active. Let us know your thoughts on the topics. Let us know what resonates with you. And so be sure to change that to everyone. And then also we will have time at the end for a Q&A. And so use that Q&A box. Let us know if you have any questions that arise from the conversation, anything that you would love to hear from Jessica and Radhika. But please use that box because it may get lost in the Q&A. But with that, let's go ahead and meet our speakers. And so, like I mentioned, in honor of it being officially summer, especially here in Florida, I would love to hear both from Jessica and Radhika about themselves, their companies, and then what is one of their favorite things to do in the summer, whether it be this summer specifically or just in general. Spoiler alert, mine is the beach, being in Florida. But I will start with Radhika and then we'll go to Jessica.
Hey, David, thank you so much. I'm Radhika, obviously, but I work at Bonusly, probably living my dream. If any one of you have seen my LinkedIn post on why I joined Bonusly, you'll know that I'm a two-time customer and love the company and the product so much that decided to join. Love the fact that all my life, actually, all my career, I've always focused on people as being the ones to power performance and building fun places to work, which are also high performing, is my passion. And I think Bonusly really enables that. So that's why I'm here. David is teasing us about the summer question because we are definitely in the middle. Apparently, Jessica just told me of a nor'easter. So it's raining and cold. But my favorite summer activity, ironically, just when the weather gets good here, I choose to go to India. And the only good news, the good news is that the time that I pick is usually rainy season there as well, but it's my sister's birthday. So I like to go and celebrate at there with her. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm leaving on Saturday. Fun.
Love it. Jessica, what about you?
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. So my name is Jessica Begley. I'm the COO of a company named Very. So Very builds connected devices, also known as the world of IoT for people who are in the technical space. So if anybody's not technical, all that means is think about all of the types of devices in your home that speak to the internet that are not your laptop or your phone. So you probably have a Nest or a snoo for your baby, or an Owlet for your baby, or pet tech. There's all kinds of things in the world that connect to the internet. So we build those and also the adjacent digital products. And my job as the COO is I actually have, every COO job is different, but I have obviously operations and IT. I have people, I have marketing, finance, and product. So I really love the leveraging of Bonusly, not just as a people person, but as a business leader. And I'm really excited to talk more about recognition with you all today. In terms of the summer, but also year round. So David, I know you're about to shiver when I say this. I love the beach and I love it all year round. So as a tried and true Northeasterner, a New Yorker, I will go to the beach even in the middle of winter, not always in the water, but definitely for a good walk. There's something about the water, just very soothing to me. So I'm with you on the beach, but probably at a different temperature.
I love it. Yes, I'm sure it's not 100 degrees over in New York right now.
It is
Hey
not.
David, I got to just add one thing. I met Jessica and I felt like I've met my twin because other than swapping product for sales, our kind of career paths and responsibilities are so similar. It was literally like meeting my work twin, like if there ever had to be. So
Love it.
looking forward to a great chat.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we're not going to give any spoilers away, but we did have a speaker meet and greet. I think it was last week. And Jessica and Radhika it was a phenomenal just connection, just conversation. And so, really excited for you to hear just about their background, the way they think about even just being business leaders. And so, really excited. But if you're here, you have probably heard of recognition. Here at Bonusly, we really don't view it as a perk. Oftentimes a lot of companies, even other vendors out there, really just think it's a perk. They think your employees just want a gift card, give it to them, and then they'll be happy. Here at Bonusly and with Jessica as well, we view it a lot more differently, really as a driver of your culture, as a driver of performance, retention, engagement, the list goes on. And so we will cover many of those topics today. And you're going to hear straight from the source, two executives, Jessica being at Very, Radhika from Bonusly, obviously, but also in her past roles, bringing on Bonusly to her companies. And they really have lived this. They've lived just really trying to get buy-in, especially from senior leadership at times. And really, both of these ladies are not afraid to challenge the status quo and really just get rid of some outdated thinking. And so, with that, let's get into it. And so, Jessica, we will start with you. Let's just lay the groundwork here. In your view, how does recognition really connect to real business results like productivity, driving business outcomes? And for you, what's one key way that you see this connection show up?
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much. So I think a few things. I think one of the differentiators I want to start with here is how does recognition connect to real business results? And I think there might be people on this call who come from really large enterprise companies where recognition might be like a one time of year official event. And I think just to reiterate, the concept of Bonusly is that recognition is a continuous event. It's happening every single day. And so obviously there's recognition that is happening sort of like in closed door spaces and that one-on-one with your manager or, an executive sending a DM. We're Slack based. So you'll hear me talk about Slack, I'm sure a few times, but, sending that DM to someone saying, hey, listen, I saw how you stepped up on that project. That's amazing. And those are really important touch points. And I don't want to diminish those. And by the way, the enterprise companies that have these big once a year fancy, recognition moments, like those can be meaningful in terms of your culture too, depending on how it's built in. But what I really believe in is the idea of continuous engagement and recognition in a more public setting. And this is one of the things I love about Bonusly. So David, you talked about it earlier that, companies will say, hey, we're going to give them a gift card for this. And like, yes, everyone loves a gift card, but I don't know if you're anything like me, there's like a stack of them in a drawer somewhere. It's like, thanks for the gift card. Let's move on. The more important part is feeling seen for what you're contributing every single day. And to me, when you talk about engagement, when you talk about retention, those are the moments that you have a chance as a leader to differentiate yourself and to really make a connection. I always tell people, in hindsight, business leaders and employees, the employees aren't going to remember the numbers, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And the reality is that's a really, nebulous way to describe what recognition means, but how does it translate? Okay, so now I'm going to answer your question. How does it translate? How do we see it show up? We see it show up because when you feel that way, when you feel connected, when you feel reinforced in your behaviors, you're going to keep showing up. It's a flywheel, right? It's a way that we continue to see people show up again and again, and top performers attract top performers. So when you think about business output, when you think about productivity, when you think about how recognition ties into engagement, turns into business results, it's very, very obvious. We've seen it globally right now. It's been a tough couple of years, and there is a significant market difference in how people feel at work right now. And so these small moments where you can make people feel good, feel like they want to bring their best and show up every day, you're going to see it tangibly in your results. It's undeniable.
I love it. Radhika, do you have anything to add to that?
I do have something to add because I think Jessica said it perfectly in the context of what she described. I think there's one more angle here which I want to take a little bit of a more practical approach as well. Because like Jessica said, recognition can take multiple formats. So why a platform? Like why does it even matter? I think the world of work has changed around us, where recognition before used to almost be seen as a nice to have, maybe because there were multiple ways, right? You could walk in through the office and you could pat somebody on the back or just look at them and say, great job, or all the excitement that used to happen just by being in the same office together, which used to create visibility. Today, we don't live in that environment, most cases, right? There may be an office, but even then there are distributed people in different parts. When you think about it in that context and you think about as a leader, what do I wake up thinking about? I wake up thinking about how on earth am I going to ensure that everyone on the team is actually do they know what's required? Do they know what good looks like? Are they working on the same things that everyone else needs to be working on? Like, these are the questions that I wake up thinking because ultimately people drive outcomes. And when people come together with a really strong collective driving in the same direction, that's what matters. And so recognition to me is everything that Jessica said. And it's also the thing that tells people what good looks like. And I'll go one step further. When people know what good looks like and they know that they're being recognized in the good, what it enables, which is very, very powerful, is the other conversation, which is about how can we do better. And I think that is the key. And democratization of this process through these platforms where people are recognizing each other where work actually happens, which is frequently not in front of leaders or managers, that visibility that it creates to the entire organization is a very, very powerful thing that drives business outcomes straight up. I spend so much time scrolling through the feed, just understanding what's going on in the business. So it is a really big deal. And I think that it's time for us all to recognize. Even the subject line of this is what do leaders think? And I'm thinking, should it be really think or really wish what they would think? Because I think that it's really a leaders issue that needs to be solved for because the world of work has changed, and this is a must-have. It's no longer a luxury.
Absolutely. And we dropped it in the chat, but we also would love to hear from the audience. Let us know, are you a hybrid, remote, and office company? It looks like majority right now are hybrid, but would just love to hear from you all what your work setup is like. But Jessica Radic, that's a great point about just the business impact that recognition has, especially from the leadership perspective. And so let's talk about the people who are really on the front lines, especially in the last few years of making sure employees are engaged, recognized, for better or worse. And so Radhika, we'll start with you, but what are some of the biggest challengers that managers face, especially like we said in the last few years, and how can recognition initiatives and tools really help them lead more effectively?
It's a great post question. And managers have different, like if you think of a manager, many times it comes to mind as a line manager, but managers have very different face. First of all, they're employees. Let's remember that, right? They're employees too. I think that's really important because sometimes people tend to think, oh, managers, it's all the manager's responsibility to make it all happen. But if you really think about what is a manager's job, I think, has two components. So one component is engaging and motivating their teams. That's really important. They need people who are going to be people leave because they don't like their manager. It's a real thing. It's known. So motivating teams and making them feel engaged is really important. And actually, Stephanie asked a question about remote employees. Very, very challenging, right? How do you make sure that your remote employees, whom you're not seeing anytime other than maybe you're getting on a call on a Zoom or a thing for 30 minutes with an agenda. That's a really tough situation in itself. The second side of what a manager needs to do is actually to be able to guide the work. A manager is a guide. A manager has to have the roadmap that is going to tell their team which direction to go in and how to work together. And when a manager is trying to balance both of these things without the tools that they need, extremely tough. So when leadership takes charge of this problem and thinks about it and says, how can I make it easier for our managers? How can we make it easy for them to do both of these things, which are very critical? Tools like recognition tools, basically what they do is they democratize that process and they share that responsibility with the managers, right? Because leadership can take on other managers, take some of the effect, employees take some of the effect because they're talking to each other, and that's where the work is happening. And when you pull that all together for a manager to have visibility into what is recognition and what is happening in the employee's world, you actually create an environment of trust, because no employee comes at it with a feeling of anxiety. I'm working here, but I don't even know whether my manager knows what I'm doing. And tools like Bonusly actually pull that together and give them that visibility of what's happening in the employee's life. It is important to think about that. And then the other side of the spectrum is those one-on-ones, or whether you call it communication, whatever it is. A manager's main role is communication. They need to communicate with their teams and communicate with the leadership to understand what is required. So anything that's going to help them to do that and provide them the insights, those are the tools that matter. And those tools are very, very important, especially with the changing times. Old tools are not going to be effective anymore. You have to think new and you have to think different. I'm sure Jessica will definitely have something to say on this topic.
I have lots of thoughts. Absolutely. I think it's Radhika, what she said. And I think if we step back here for a minute and we think about the changing landscape of organizational structures over the last couple of years, we've seen it in the headlines again and again. That pyramid structure, which used to have kind of, the angle on the top was very wide for a long time. It's really peaking now, where you're seeing more organizations have less executives, less of those managers. The delayering process has really come to a head over the last couple of years. And let's be honest, it's mostly because organizations are looking at cost cuts. And this is the way that they've expanded that scope and scale of each individual. And what I find, even with myself, you guys heard me describe my job at the beginning of this, is you are pulled as a manager in so many directions every single day. You have so many priorities, so many KPIs, and the people piece is a huge one. And most of the people I know in places of leadership they're so grateful to their people. And when they talk about their teams, they're glowing about their teams. But do you remember to say thank you every day? Do you remember to recognize them for the things that they're doing that are probably outside the sphere? I think most of us, now listen, we're in that small size company, right? And I think I always joke when I say, is that in my job description? Does anybody even have a job description anymore, right? Especially in certain jobs. And so there is a reality of, there are a lot of people on my team every single day who are stepping outside of their job description, outside of their lane. And I want to say thank you for that. Having a tool that reminds me and makes me remember, oh my gosh, say thank you, say great job. It makes it that behavior. It builds in that behavior as part of my process. It's just like everything else, all the behaviors that we learn and all the things that we do, right? Like most people have schedules sort of in their day. I get up, when I sit down, I check my Slack, I check my email, I do these things. To me, one of those other steps is, and then I go into Bonusly. Just like I go into my email, just like I go into my Slack, I go into my Bonusly. And so having a tool that is there to remind me, to reinforce that behavior, to recognize my team, it makes it so automatic that I stop and I think like, okay, yes, let me take a few minutes and let me say thank you for all the things that my team, did this week. And I think those tools are really the differentiating factor of you learning the behavior to do it continuously, or you always thinking, okay, I'll do it next one-on-one. And so that's where I think it can really be a meaningful way to use a tool to leverage that behavior as a leader.
Absolutely. And I think even, not necessarily even just the quote, small or bigger tasks, but even things like birthdays, work anniversaries. I mean, just talking to my circle of friends, it is just astonishing how many, even leaders and companies, like people go to work and it's their birthday and nobody could say a thing, or it's, someone else. And for some reason, somebody may make a comment, and so the manager knows. And so it really turns into this almost like unequitable way of, celebrating birthdays, work anniversaries, but even tracking them. And so that's one of my favorite things really about just having a tool to where I know when my coworkers' birthdays are that are coming up. My manager knows when my birthday is, and it just makes it, a lot. Just those small things are just super helpful. And so I love that you brought that up, Jessica. Radhika, let's start with you with this next one. So let's bring it big picture here. When it comes to building a recognition culture, maybe bringing in a recognition tool or program or initiative, who really holds the keys? We talk a lot with HR and people teams, get fired up. They love the idea. They're very passionate about it. But then sometimes when they bring it to leadership, it turns into a whole different story. And so would love your thoughts around this. Where in an organization should the responsibility lie? And really, how do you see that relationship between especially HR and leadership and driving those initiatives?
I think so. When I think about my simple answer is this: recognition actually lives where the responsibility for delivering company outcomes lives, which is with the leadership. It's as simple as that. Because in order to deliver because let's admit it, right? All of us are, unless you're in a not-for-profit, in which case the goals are different, but still you have a responsibility. In all cases, whatever may be the type of organization, you're all coming together to meet a common purpose. So the delivery of that common purpose is always going to be the primary goal of any organization. Everything else needs to be in service of that, right? That is the way that obviously investors, whoever it is, that is the reality. So pretending that that is not the thing that matters the most is kind of faking it, right? It's just trying to shove it under the carpet, but that's not true. It is that. Let's admit and accept it. But there is a second reality. The second reality is that the only way to achieve those objectives is through people. And when people are not motivated, or they're not excited, or they don't feel connected, or they don't care about your mission, or they don't know what your mission is, just because they don't know any of this, how are you ever going to achieve it? Right? Now, I think similar to managers, HR actually has a tough role right now because recognition, unfortunately, in the pre-pandemic days became a perk. The reason that it became a perk was because we were focused on those offices with all the drinks and the ping pong tables and the slides, and it became a race to how much can you spend on this. And ultimately, for organizations, there is a financial impact. And I've been a CFO for multiple years as well, as part of the hats that I've worn. And as a CFO, I can tell you that it doesn't make sense, right? Because it isn't productive. And so recognition got shoved into that perquisite category and got a bad rap. It was a nice to have, oh, we can just do away with it. At least the recognition tools did, because they were so tightly connected to rewards. I will tell you that the rewards factor. So just in a in just I'm saying this as a customer of, not as an executive of, okay? So in the importance of Bonusly, right? Why Bonusly or any other platform out there? The action of giving points. When an organization gives points to their employees, not for themselves, but for them to give to other people to create recognition, that is a very powerful message that gets sent to an organization, that tells people that your leaders actually care about the fact that, are you doing a good job? We care about it so much that we are giving you this to share with others who are doing a good job along with you. That's a pretty powerful message. And when HR goes to any CFO, and I'll speak on behalf of my CFO community, that quite honestly, I mean, seriously, are we really thinking that it's about the money? Like, think about the ROI of productivity that gets created, right? That is the most important thing. I laugh sometimes because rewards budgets, one team event that you organize easily costs between $50 to $75 per person. You just go out for a lunch. That is an entire annual budget for rewards for a platform like this, which gives you day to day continuous advantage. It changes the dynamic, it builds the culture. So, in short, this must live with leadership, but HR has a very, very powerful role to play here. That voice of HR, because I think that multiple times HR is on the hook for delivering results. Why are people getting fired, leaving the company? What is going on? It feels like they're the ones who are bearing the sole burden of this. No, the burden has to be shared. And HR has a very important role because they are in the center of that, of making that happen. But it is leadership's responsibility to own this, of which HR is a part as well. So it's that common goal. All leadership, all management needs to own this. Sorry, I get very passionate about this, so I maybe have become a little bit more animated than I needed to be. So
I loved it. I loved it, Radhika. I think I see this very similarly to you, and I use this description in a few ways. I think one of the, like, let's use your CFO example, right? So the finance team in most organizations is responsible for building cost centers and budgets, but who's responsible for keeping within their budget? The team themselves, right? Why is recognition any different? HR built health to build the tools and the budgets, but it's up to the team themselves to run within it and to make that the most meaningful it can be, right? Use your budget to the most meaning. And I think a lot of times when we think about other top line metrics, right? There's most companies have in people's bonus structures something about top line and bottom line results, right? So this is just part of that. The more that we can have business leaders across all functions understand the direct connection between recognition to engagement, to productivity, to retention, and what that creates in terms of a loop in your business, the more those functional heads will understand recognition isn't owned by one department. It's owned by all of us, because if we want to be able to deliver on the business results that we have promised, to your point, laddering up to this overarching goal, what is our mission as an organization, then we have to have all of these ecosystems within our own functions in order to ladder up. I think the other thing is, and we're seeing this a lot too, it's a very, I think, AI in itself is a fascinating moment, in how it's sort of tearing down some silos across organizations, about who owns what. And that's another piece where I think, these ideas of this old concept of silos. Well, we only own and drive this, and we only and drive that. That's coming down. Walls are coming down left and right. And part of that's because of the technology that we now have access to. But to me, this is an underlying assumption, is that you as a leader in your organization are going to drive the connectivity and the recognition because you have KPIs you're driving towards. And these things can be in service of your other business KPIs. I say other business because I truly believe recognition, engagement, and retention are business KPIs, and every leader should be responsible for them.
Jessica, I just, David, sorry, but just on a tangent, one thing that I've been thinking about recently, because you mentioned AI. And we all think about AI, but I'm talking about the bots, right? We keep hearing that the new teammates are going to be bots, and I'm thinking, those bots are going to need recognition because otherwise they're not going to speak the cultural language of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you
Mm-hmm.
have this other type of population which has a whole other culture. Because I find myself very guilty of actually chatting with in very plain English. Hey, can you think of it this way, or what about that way? It is the way the conversation happens. And so far, AI has been very polite in answering. But I do feel that if AI bots are going to be a part of the employee workforce, do we need to start thinking about how are we going to recognize them as well? I don't know. Just putting that out there as a crazy thought that's on my mind. So
Listen, David's going to throw a stick at us. So we're going to come back to the plot here in a minute. But there was actually a recent study out of Switzerland where they actually used recognition versus like diminishing language on AI bots and saw the reinforcement model. And they actually came to realize that AI bots actually benefited from therapy themselves after being told. It's a very interesting study because to what your point, just like humans, there's a reinforcement model in these AI chatbots because they're large language models, and so they reinforce the learning. And so if you're constantly not saying thank you, not saying please, over time they begin to learn that language. It's fascinating.
new topics. Sorry, David.
Yes.
We'll
No,
come back. We'll come back.
I feel like every day there's just a new study, just fascinating thing when it comes to AI. But as you were talking, and Jessica doesn't know that I'm doing this, but out of our speaker meet and greet, Jessica said this, and I shared it with our full team. And I think it is just really important just to even note here. But she said, even in the age of AI, let's be honest, what is the differentiating factor of you in another business that has the identical business model? And it's the people. And when she said that, I immediately wrote it down, looked at the transcript after to make sure I had it right. But it is so true and it is so powerful and goes back to what you were saying with, recognition, engagement, productivity, retention, and just taking care of your people. And so just thought I would share that with everyone since we were on the AI topic. And so, Jessica, we'll start with you with this next one. You hinted at it. We used to say, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Now we're just, lumping it all together, the last few
Sure.
years, which I feel like we'll be saying for a few years, but, you know, things are rapidly changing in terms of
Mhm.
AI, worldwide events, the current culture. And so as things are changing, when we are in times of uncertainty, how can recognition keep teams aligned? What role does it play, especially in times of uncertainty and really just confusion?
Yeah, what a wild moment. Listen, I have to say, for anybody who's listening who might be a little nervous about AI, I am so excited by AI. I've been going to a lot of different conversations. I live in New York and a lot of really interesting people. And the thing that you have to remember is AI is not going to replace people. AI is going to enable people to do more and be more productive. Now, some CEOs, not to mention any names, have come out in the last couple of weeks and said some pretty harsh things to their teams about what AI means and how they need to get on their game. And I just think it's the wrong attitude. It's the wrong attitude. And I think when we think about things are changing quickly and feeling uncertain, to step back a little bit, I was actually speaking to a business owner the other day, and we were talking about now as an executive, what does it look like? We used to do not that long ago, post pandemic, we used to do annual planning and have to come into these multi-day summits with your annual plan and quarterly plans and all these targets. And last year I looked at our company and I said, what's an annual plan anymore? What is it? What are we doing here? The world is changing too fast. There's no more annual planning. So what I say now is no annual plan, annual KPIs, annual targets. What are we trying to achieve? What are we building towards? And then 90-day sprint planning. Okay. And I know almost every business owner, founder, executive that I talk to is starting to think this way. Even if they don't say it out loud, they're starting to think this way because things change so rapidly. So, how does this come back to your question? One of the things that we all need to do as leaders with that in mind is to reset expectations with our team. Hey, listen, I know that we've been used to doing things on a longer run basis. You might be used to things working standardly over longer periods of time. What we need to do is we all need to change our behavior in the workplace to match the speed of change that's occurring around us right now. And one of the best things we can do is one, say that out loud, and two, recognize and reinforce that behavior when we see it. I know that you just spent the last 60 days working on X, but I got to tell you, we're seeing in the market signals, it's not working. Or we're seeing the macroeconomic change very, very quickly. I mean, I think if anybody is not American, you've probably seen this from the outskirts, but like the US and our economy over the last 90 days has been a roller coaster ride at best. We have to change on a dime. And so one of the things that we have to be all say is, hey, listen, I know you've been doing this for the last however long, but all of the winds are changing around us and we need to pivot and we need to pivot and we need to pivot. And that, I promise you, is that agile approach is going to continue to be the way of the world. And so I think using that recognition as a reinforcement model to the changing behaviors of what we need to see in the workplace today is a great way that leaders can take this uncertainty and say, it's not scary, it's exciting. It's going to require all of us to have a different mentality and a different approach to our work. We all need to be ready to drop what we were working on to work on something new any given day. And it's okay. I'm still going to say great job on the thing you did, even though it's not going to translate into the next thing. You've learned something that learning we're going to use to move forward. And so that's how I really think about the uncertainty of the moment, the agility. Frame it as excitement, frame it as opportunities to learn and grow, and use that recognition to reinforce the model.
David, are you just waiting for me to start?
Yeah.
Jessica, when it like even takes me a minute, all the words of wisdom, I have to absorb them first. No, it's a really, I mean, I'm not joking even. I think the way that you said it and what you said is really important, because uncertain times for business is also uncertain times for the employees, and that is reality. And by the way, I also want to I want to redefine recognition. I'm so sick of recognition being only thought of as some sort of a entitlement, or, oh, why do people always want to be patted on the back like this? It's just really annoying to me, because in reality what it is a combination. When you are, look, I come to work every single day because I want to do my best. But if I don't know what that looks like, what is the point of it? And more importantly, in the times of uncertainty, if I don't know what I'm doing is mattering to the business, how do we as leaders create the foundation of trust and confidence that we can have that other confidence, other conversation that Jessica mentioned, right? Hey, you've done a great job. However, the economy is such that it's changed on us and now we need to redo it or we need to change it. But if that confidence doesn't exist, how will an individual, especially I will go back to the point of if you're working in remote environments and or a distributed environment, or you're not seeing that leader or your boss face to face all the time, how are you going to, starting with the employee, how will you understand whether you did something wrong or something changed, right? How, as a manager, will you have the difficult conversation of saying, the work that we've done, unfortunately, is not panning out. We need to redo this, and know that the person will bounce back and be able to do that with you? How, as a leader, are you going to be able to have the confidence to know that your team is with you in that moment of excitement if you're not creating that background of fun and happiness and confidence that is required? Recognition is goes hand in hand. Recognition, one side of recognition is saying you did a great job, and the other side of recognition is helping do even more and even better. And so it's, I wish that the definition of recognition could change to include both of these things, because that's what we are trying to do as a business, and it's really hard to keep saying this again and again. And what is that word then? Because it's not performance.
Mhm.
It's actually the act of doing good work and knowing how to do better, and being able to have easy conversations in an environment you're full of confidence in, because you know that you're seen and you're valued, and that is absolutely critical in this time more than ever before.
Don't
Sorry.
we all feel that way, Radhika? No, I think it's so true, because when you think about that, when do we do our best work? Even myself, and I'm pretty resilient. When do I do my best? When I feel happy, light, appreciated, confident, right? Don't we all do our best when we feel that way versus beat down, frustrated, just downtrodden about what's going on around us, right? And there's like, to your point, like there's a lot of external forces at play that make us all feel that way right now from day to day. So can't work be a place where you feel light and feel like you're creating value and feel like you're appreciated? And don't you want to continue to do more work? Because again, your own personal, for most of us, our own personal reinforcement model is when you feel that way, you want to feel that way again tomorrow. So you're going to do great things so that you feel that way again and feel that way again and feel that way again. And so I think you're right. This like kind of outdated, very antiquated concept and definition of recognition needs to be more expansive.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of, we had a webinar, I want to say last month, and one of our friends here at Bonusly, her name is Holly, but she even took it a step further, and she was saying, when employees are recognized, when they're appreciated for what they do, not only do they benefit the business in terms of what we've been talking about with productivity, performance, engagement, retention, but when they clock out, when they go home, they're doing better for their community. They're more happy. They're more, free to invest. They're not leaving work drained. They're not leaving work upset. And so when she said that, I thought that was just so powerful. It is like a trickle effect. It has, just lasting impacts, even aside from work, but even just for your community, your circle, your family. And so it was just a powerful thing that she said.
David, the strangest thing, sorry, just one last thing.
Yeah.
Many times people don't even realize that even yes, I'm the CEO of the company. But when somebody in the team just recognizes and says, "Hey, what you just said made a difference," and you get those bonusly points or whatever it is, it it makes my day. So
Mhm,
it's very powerful. It's super powerful, and I really hope that it can happen to everyone in the world.
mhm.
It's necessary.
Absolutely. And so, we've covered, the why, the who, we've discussed managers, employees, leadership. And so our last question, and I will pause here. If you have any questions for Jessica and Radhika, use that Q&A. I know we have a few in there already, but just wanted to flag that if anything just has sparked your interest, you want to hear more from them, use that box. But our final question for the two of you, we just want to dig into the what. So, whether the audience is looking to start some sort of recognition initiative or program, whether they have one, whether, they're exploring different ones, what are one or two key things that really make recognition work well in a company? And what does effective recognition look like in practice? Here at Bonusly, we talk a lot about recognition done right. We talked earlier in this webinar, a lot of, people think it's throwing a gift card at the situation, giving your employees an Amazon, stipend. But, we really believe that recognition done right is a thing and has multiple elements. So I'd love to hear from both of you, and we'll start with you, Jessica.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the core of this is the leadership team has to be bought in. If the leadership team is not bought into the fact that this is really critical, and again, I think it goes back to, you know, um, a lot of times when you think about the people space, there's a lot of people in the people space who like to talk about, how it makes the employees feel, because typically a lot of people in that function are very empathic people, and they see what that feeling means. But the reality is the language of CEOs, of COOs, of CFOs is the business output. So you have to translate it into what the business output is. And we can sit here and talk about if that's right or wrong, but it is real. So you have to translate it into what the business output is and get their buy-in as to why this is important. Because if those most senior leaders in the org don't believe in it, it's not going to go anywhere. So I think that's one thing that's really, really core. The second piece is, and I have seen this where it fails in orgs, you have to reduce the gates to what managers believe is deserving of being recognized. So a lot of times I will see, because they'll be like, well, I can't do it for everybody, so X type of behavior doesn't get recognized. Only these feats of superhuman strength can be recognized. When in reality, it's those little things. I'll have moments where I'll DM somebody and be like, I know I'm asking you this with a 10-minute runway, but can you jump on this client call with me really fast to answer a couple of questions? And then I send them a bonusly right afterwards, right? Thank you for your quick moves. Thanks for jumping on with me. Listen, somebody would say, but isn't that part of their job? And it's like, sure, but also, like, they did it and they got on and they made impact. They created value. So I think reducing those gates of what is deserving of those shout outs and recognition is really, really important. I have seen places that try to keep it to a certain bar, and it feels like nothing can cross that. And so subsequently, nothing gets recognized, when in fact, the idea of recognition is it should be really smooth. It should be about those day-to-day things. It should just be about the little moments when somebody made your day easier and created value for the company. And so I would say, to me, those are the two core things. Is one, you got to get the senior leadership bought in by any means necessary. And then two, reduce the gates of what is deserving of being recognized. So instead, people are just giving those really organic, thank you so much, pat on the backs day to day.
Love that.
Absolutely.
I think from my perspective, I would say that in order to make recognition like work well, first of all, it needs to be intentional. it cannot be an afterthought. If it's an afterthought, it's too late because that moment is gone. And to
Mhm.
be recognized for something that you did like maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, but what about the time that's gone in between? Like it doesn't have any value, right? And to Jessica's point of leadership buy-in, I think it's really critical because you have to be intentionally making the statement that this is something that you care about culturally, right? Because ultimately what matters is the culture and the environment of the business, how it comes together and how people work in that. And they're looking for guidance to leadership to understand what is the culture. Like, so many times you hear of cultures where oh, it's just your job to do it, or we only care about the top 20%, or we are going to have this. But even companies like that, quite honestly, I won't take names, but have come back to realize that, oh, it's not always about that. Actually, you need the other side to be balanced as well. So recognition is important, increasingly so, right? So from my standpoint, and I want to pull in some of the questions that I'm seeing on the chat, not in the Q&A. But one of the questions is, okay, so what does it mean? So from my perspective, and I will be biased because I will again play the card of being a customer first. And really, I believe that recognition has to be done intentionally. And in today's world of work, it needs to be a problem that's solved with software. Because somebody talked about handwritten notes, really important. Handwritten notes are important, but it's not that the handwriting, it's that someone took the effort to do something, that they went and they actually typed up a recognition post and sent it to me. That is as personal as a handwritten note. In Bonusly, we have a video chat. Like we have a video, we can record videos. It's up the game because you can actually be so personal when you get on a video and say, hey, congratulations, you did such a good job. Now there's tone, there's face, there is the ability to know who else works in the business. That fear of having words not have tone or misinterpretation gone. So these things where a business is intentional about it, and when that becomes the language of an organization, it requires leaders to participate. How do you know? I think somebody wrote something in the chat and they said that it starts with knowing your leaders and managers, and then you buy into the vision. First, you buy into your leaders and managers. How do you know your leaders and managers if they are not participating along with you? So this culture of recognition going surpassing all levels and really becoming something that pulls the team together in a platform that is a way of, the way that you used to walk the floors, you can walk this platform and see what people are saying, what's going on in the business, who's working there. That relationship, when that builds together, you get a sense of community and you get strong communication that actually allows for the team to come together to achieve a common goal. And so for me, recognition done right, honestly, is about being intentional. And I completely agree with Jessica that it has to be leading by example. So it's not just for employees, it's actually all employees, which include leaders, managers. That's why I said a manager is an employee too, a leader is an employee too. Employees are very special, all of us, right, collectively. So it's the equalizer. In my point, it's actually an equalizer. It's amazingly an equalizer.
I love it. And I also cannot believe we only have 10 minutes left. I knew that this would be just a phenomenal conversation. And so thank you so much, Jessica and Radhika. We will quickly get to the Q&A because I know we have quite a few. But I did want to go ahead and share Jessica and Radhika's LinkedIn's. You can click the link in the chat or you can scan the QR code on the screen. If there's anything that you want to just talk with them about, if they said anything that really resonated with you, feel free to connect with them. I know they would love to chat, would love to just connect and just keep in touch. And so feel free to do that. And, I know a lot of you after this webinar are probably thinking, this all sounds great, but how does it actually work, especially in practice? How does it work with my company? I know we've already have someone who's messaged us saying, okay, is it for big companies? Is it for small? What does it look like? And so we would love to chat with you. And so I will go ahead and launch a quick poll before we get into the Q&A. But if you want to just see how Bonusly could work for your company, whether you're, like Jessica said, a big enterprise, whether you're a smaller company, whether you're anywhere in between, go ahead. You can check us out on our website or answer this poll, and someone will reach out to you. I also love, someone last time in the survey after the webinar said, "Can you please add an option for already a Bonusly customer?" And so I already see a few of you answering that. So very happy that you're joining us, and hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. But I will leave this open for just a few more seconds as we head into the Q&A. This is a Q&A. It came in through the box. It also came in through the chat. And I'll just ask it, Jessica, Radica, whoever would like to answer, go ahead. But it's, what advice would you give to people leaders trying to make a compelling case for recognition, or even just a people program in general? What data outcomes do you find most persuasive as C-suite, as COO, for both of you?
I think I'll let to pick. It'll be easier. Otherwise, we'll talk over each other. Both of us have lots of good things to say.
All right, let's start with you, Radhika.
I think that I mean, basically, I think the best way at any point is to ask the leaders, what problems are you facing right now? What is keeping you up at night? What is going on that you want to solve for? And I believe that right now, if I'm not wrong, a lot of people, the common questions that answers that you're going to hear are around what I alluded to, the fact that are people working together? Are we going towards the same purpose? There's so much change. How do I communicate it? Are people understanding what needs to be done? This is always times of uncertainty, right? At other times, it might be retention when the market is awesome for employees. Employee retention becomes a core issue. So when you associate and understand the business problem that is actually the issue that what business problem do they want to solve for? When you know that your people programs need to tie into the solution for that problem. If you go to your C-suite, especially your CFO or anyone, and say, "Oh, I need a tool that's going to recognize and reward the teams," it's never going to come across because they don't have the time maybe to go and dig into what these kinds of things do. So it's difficult to explain it in that context because they're going to think of it as another perk. And when there are uncertain or difficult times, you start to cut budgets. In reality, the problems that are being faced today in these uncertain times require tools like this that bring people together towards a common purpose. So I would say, please listen to what is the problem, dig into the problem, the core business problem, and present your solution, whatever it might be, as a solution for that problem.
Absolutely. Jessica, I know this one will be a good one for you to answer.
Okay.
This question is, let me find it. Ooh, it went away. It says, what are your thoughts around how to recognize and keep fully remote employees engaged?
Love it. Very is a fully remote company. So I actually had to like stifle a little giggle when somebody said handwritten notes. I was like, I love handwritten notes. I wish I could hand them to my team. I can't. So I think, so we're fully remote. We're actually across 6 countries, all in the Western Hemisphere. Some of my team lives in different countries. I usually get to see them once a year at our retreat. And I did, in fact, hand them all a handwritten note last time I saw them in person because I did want to do that. But I can't do that day to day. So what do? I think it goes back to that checklist that you had, David, which is 1, absolutely have that recognition be personal, meaningful, timely. That's huge. Other things that we do, so this is kind of outside of the Bonusly ecosystem, but other things that we do is, I said we're all Slack-based, so we actually do, they come from Jessica, I do an announcement on birthdays and anniversaries in our general channel with those tagged. We actually do morning random question of the day every morning. So we moved to theme weeks just because I thought that was a good old time. This week is condiment week. So we're doing every question this week on the mornings is about condiments. But we've done all kinds of ones. We did time travel one week. We did concerts one week. But what we really try to do is honestly make that space of Slack for us feel like the water cooler, feel like the areas of connection where people are connecting, not just in the meetings that they go to, not only talking to the people that they would normally only talk to every day. So you want to create that sense of community. And you can do that even though people are remote. One other thing that we love to do is we have social Slack channels. So these are channels that are on areas of commonality. So we have a very vibrant social parenting channel. We have a car talk channel. We have a pet. Well, we used to have a pet channel. It got a little wild, so we had to split it between cats and dogs. So we now have a social cat channel and a social dog channel. We have a social Star Wars channel. And these are spaces where people can kind of go in and like talk about things that they're interested in, drop pictures, drop videos. And it's it's a really fun way. Like social parenting to me is, if I was like walking through the hallway and somebody ran up to me and like, I have to show you the cutest picture of what my kid did this morning, you know, in the office, it's that, but in a channel. So I personally think that if you asked anyone at Very, they would tell you they feel more connected to their coworkers who are fully distributed than they ever did when they were in an office. But it's because we do all of these things with intention of making people feel connected, even though they're sitting in their own home and not in an office setting.
Jessica, I did on your behalf a little bit type that idea of asking kids what their parents do, which was so awesome.
Yes. Yes. So I shared at our last call that we did a video a couple of years ago for, I think we did it between Mother's and Father's Day in the summer. And we had all the kids at Very and we asked them like 3 questions. And one of the questions was, what does your parent do? And the answers were more incredible than you can even imagine. Because, you know, a lot of them were like, my dad is on calls. That's his job. He does calls. And it's really incredible, but it's fun ways, again, making people feel connected as humans to other humans in their workspace. Reality is we spend more time with the people we work with than anyone else in our lives, right? I stare at my coworkers' faces more than I stare at my child's, and that's a reality. So don't you want to make it feel like a space where you are connected to other people?
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question. Before we get into it, if you may have to hop early, I would just ask you, we have a survey at the end. Just would love your thoughts, any feedback about the webinar, any ideas for future topics. Would love your ideas as we plan out the rest of our year. So please feel free to take that survey. But with that, Radhika, our final question is a good one. We get it a lot. And it is, how do you ensure recognition stays meaningful and doesn't become routine or transactional?
I think by including the stories behind the recognition, that's what matters. I think it's not about just giving, hey, saying thank you and giving 2 points. Now, again, I'll say this is a culture that needs to be built. But the power of having, why did you recognize someone? That tells them what work they did that meant more. And in fact, adds meaning to the recognition itself. And when you do that, it starts to create that environment of people sharing and being proactive and really just including the information on making it personal. I think that's what keeps it fresh and keeps it going.
Love it. With 2 minutes to spare, Jessica, do you have anything to add?
I think she nailed it. You know, it's about being meaningful. I mean, think about the way that you like, listen, work is not your family, it's different, but think about the way that you like text your best friend, you know, like those are relationships you invest in. It's the same with your coworkers, and it's, you know, you want it to be meaningful. You want them to feel like you're in their corner, they're in your corner. And so I think the more that you can be specific and meaningful and genuine and authentic, not feel like some AI chatbot boilerplate, right? You want it to be real. You want it to feel like it's coming from you as a human to them.
I
Agreed.
love it.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be
Doesn't
meaningful.
have to be perfect. That's right. That's
Yep.
right.
And that's what I love about our new video one. It's, very easy and it's never perfect, but it makes it that much more fun. Well, thank you both so much. I, just knew this webinar would just be tremendous after we had our meet and greet last week. But thank you to the audience. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us, the Thursday before a long weekend. I hope you learned something. I hope you're able to take something away from this webinar. Again, we'll just encourage you, connect with Jessica and Radhika. In our follow-up email, we'll include the recording. We'll also have their LinkedIn's as well. But thank you all again so much, and we hope you all have a great long weekend.